Good morning, good morning. You are listening to KSFS Radio San Francisco. KSFS is proudly brought to you by the Department of Broadcast and Electronic Communication Arts at San Francisco State University. Some rights reserved under the Creative Commons license. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Grief Support Group. This is a radio show hosted by me, Alex Piscatelli, and on this show, I talk all things pop culture, my research on grief and media, and answer your advice questions. Okay, as always, you can submit your advice questions at bit.ly, that's bit.ly/KSFS advice. That's bit.ly/KSFS advice. Okay, I'm so excited for today's show. As many of you maybe know, I don't know, possibly know, last week was my first show with KSFS, and I'm so happy to be back. It's so funny because, basically I'm instructing one of the KSFS classes this semester. I'm a grad student here at San Francisco State, and I have a background in podcasting, and then I did college radio back in 2014 to 2017. And I was seeing all my students have their shows and have so much fun with their shows and do all these creative things. I was like, okay, I need to do a show. Like, let me come in one Tuesday morning and see how it goes. And I was like nervous. I'd be all stressed about it, like planning the show every week. But I'm like, this is such a nice, like, hour of my week. And then I feel like I don't know if anyone else does this. Like when I'm in the car, I'm just kind of like yapping to myself sometimes. Not always, but sometimes I just sit there and talk. And so I find myself doing that because I'm like, okay, this is what I can talk about on the show this week. So I feel like it's been a really good, like, nice hour of my week, and I hope you all feel the same listening. So as I said, Grief Support Group is a show where I talk all things pop culture, my research on grief and media, and answer your advice questions. So I'm so excited today because what we are going to be talking about. So basically at my first segment, after the intro and after some music, is I will be talking about my thesis and update because it's happening. And then I'll also be talking about Desperate Housewives because I don't know if anyone has watched. I'm sure millions, and I know millions, but I'm sure many of you have listened as well or watched Desperate Housewives. The thing that baffles me is that I just started the show like 2 weeks ago. No one ever told me, hey, Alex, you should watch Desperate Housewives. And I'm so confused as to why no one has ever said that to me because it feels so up my alley, and I'll get to that as to why that is. But Desperate Housewives, we will be discussing today. Then later, I will be answering 2 advice questions. So one is about getting your partner to communicate with you better. And the second one is about how to support a partner or family member who's struggling with extra grief during the holiday season, because the holidays are coming up. I can't believe it's already halfway through October. And I know, okay, here's my thing, because I actually was going to talk about the weather too. And like, I feel like I'm always like, wait, how are we at this point in the year? Like, I'm someone who does that kind of small talk, but guess what? I love small talk. Okay. I feel like when people are like, I don't like small talk, let's talk about big things. I'm like, small talk is like literally the best thing in the world. Like, yes, of course, I love deep talk. Like, of course. But like, isn't it so fun to talk to someone and be like, the weather's crazy? You know what I mean? And that's what I wanted to say to y'all today. I don't know if everyone here is listening from San Francisco, but I am recording this live from San Francisco. And I gotta say, leaving my house this morning, oh my God, the sky looked gorgeous. But my thing is, I have a little bit of whiplash because it goes from like hot and I'm sweating to like ice cold, like that. I don't know if anyone could hear my snap, but I did snap. It's crazy. But anyway, see, isn't that so fun to discuss? Maybe not to listen to, but I love talking to a stranger and being like, yeah, the sky looks beautiful. I feel like that's what makes life go around. Anyway, it's been a week. As I will talk about, my thesis has been, it's been a lot. But first, before we get into some music, I have something I need to raise to everyone's attention. And that, my friends, is something called aphantasia. Okay, I'm about to blow some people's minds. Actually, the crazy thing is people whose minds aren't blown, only 2% of people's minds are about to be blown right now. Because most people don't care, because most people don't have aphantasia. Well, guess what? I do. And so I'm going to make this about that. So I found out what this was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I have only met like 2 people who have also been really blown away by this information. But basically, I found out people can see images in their mind. Yeah. So what I'm going to ask you to do right now, if you're listening, is to close your eyes and imagine an apple. I want to know what you see. Let me know. Type it in the chat. If you're listening on KSFS Radio app, type it in the chat. Let me know. Comment somewhere. I want to know. Because guess what? I don't see anything. And I found this out like 2 or 3 years ago, as I said. And I was like, wait, you're actually joking me. People can see things in their mind. Because when I close my eyes, by the way, this experiment, if you're driving or something, please do not close your eyes. Do it at a later time. But I found out that people close their eyes and like vividly see a red or green apple. And they just see it. Like they close their eyes and it's just there in their mind. I got confused because I was like, yeah, I think I see it. Like, I'm thinking about it, like it's in the back of my mind. No, I don't see it. It's shocking information to find out because here's the thing that pisses me off. So let me tell a little anecdote. I'm a huge fan of the movie Mean Girls. And Christmas 2010, when I was in my freshman year of high school, my parents, my parents. I was like, my mom used to sign gifts with, she wrote the big S. And so I was trying to remember if the big S gave me this gift or my parents. I think at this point, I guess I was 14. I think it was signed from my parents. Anyway, so I got Mean Girls on DVD for my birthday or for Christmas. And I watched Mean Girls, I kid you not, from Christmas Day till I went back to school after winter break, so let's say beginning of January, 30 times. Because I'm someone who loves things on repeat. Like if I'm obsessed with something, I have watched it at least 100 times. I'm not someone who's just, if I like something, I'm only going to watch it once. Like, why would I do that? You know what I mean? So I had watched Mean Girls like 30 times that winter break. And I had watched it so much that at that time, I used to have it memorized. Like, and so even if I wasn't watching it, like I would be thinking it in my head. Like, I forget, I don't even remember how it begins. I feel like the only thing I have memorized now, but even that, it's not fully memorized, is we should totally just stab Caesar. Sorry, my voice just went in the red. Anyway, so all I'm saying is that if I had Mean Girls memorized in that way and I could see images in my mind, I would be watching it in my mind. And so I think these 98% of people who can see images in their mind actually piss me off because they can just watch things in their mind. You know what I mean? I think about this because I'm someone who I am on a plane and I'm bringing my iPad, I'm bringing a book, I'm bringing headphones for my phone. I am bringing headphones that you can plug in and watch the TV on the back of the seat. I need all forms of entertainment, okay? Like I'm prepared in this way. And I go on a flight with my husband one time. we were living in Maine at the time, and we were flying from Maine to Washington, D.C. So it's like an hour and a half flight. He didn't, and this flight did not have a TV on the back of the seat. He didn't bring headphones. He didn't bring a book. He didn't bring anything. No iPad, no laptop, nothing. And I said, what are you going to do? And he was like, I don't know, just like think or like talk to the person next to me. I'm like, the person next to you doesn't want that. Like, I don't want someone talking to me. What? Like, what? Anyway, he ended up talking to the guy next to him on the flight for an hour and a half. I could never. As someone who loves small dog, that's the place you don't do it. But I think it's because he can see images in your mind. If I could see images in my mind, I would be totally fine on a flight with no media. Hello, it's in my mind. But unfortunately, I need all the entertainment I can get because there's nothing in here. There's many voices and many sounds, but there's no images. Okay, I've been talking about this way longer than expected. I want to do a quick, so there's this website called aphantasia.com. Yeah, there's a whole site about it. But there's this idea of a visual, I was going to say conceptualizer, but these are the two things. So there's a visualizer and a conceptualizer. So you're one of the two, right? It's like the way your mind works. So I have a little experiment for you. Again, I did not make this up. I don't know if this is scientifically sound, but it is on aphantasia.com/guide. So I'm going to do this little experiment and I want you all to play along and let me know how it goes. So experiment goes, visualize, picture, imagine, or whatever you call it, a ball on a table. Now, imagine someone walks up to the table and gives the ball a push. What happens to the ball? You got that? Okay. Now, answer these questions for me. 1. What color was the ball? 2. What gender was the person who pushed the ball? What did they look like? 3. What size is the ball? Like a marble or a baseball or a basketball or something else? 4. What about the table? What shape was it? What was it made out of? 5. What happened to the ball? Okay, now here's where it gets crazy. The important question. Finally, did you already know, or did you have to choose a color, gender, size, etc. after being asked these questions? I know. So if you already knew, you are a visualizer because they gave us this scenario on aphantasia.com and you already you visualized it. Like you saw the image and that's how you conjured it up. That's how you thought of it. Now me, I'm a conceptualizer because it said, imagine someone like pushing a ball. And I was like, okay, I'm not seeing it. Like, so I was just like, yeah, I was imagining the idea of it, but I wasn't imagining it. So then it's asking me these questions and I'm like, okay, I guess a purple ball. I guess it was like the size of a baseball. I guess the person pushing it was my husband, Jack. Like, I guess the table was the dining table and it just like fell to the floor. Yeah. I wasn't thinking of these before. I wasn't thinking of those details until it asked me. So I'm a conceptualizer, and for the other 2% of you that also are, I hope you have a good day. Now, let's get started with our first music break. We are going to listen to some Ariana Grande because this wouldn't be Grief Support Group without it. Yeah, on Spotify this week, there was the Pick Your Top 5 Ariana songs. This is the extended version of my number 3 song. So let's get into it, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome back. That was Nosebleeds by Doechii, and you are listening to Grief Support Group, and I am your host, Alex Piscatelli. Okay, the thing is with that song, Nosebleeds by Doechii, that is my favorite song right now. I'm obsessed with it. I think I have this mix of main character syndrome with like always thinking like I'm gonna win mixed with Leo Rising that makes songs like that where she's like talking about her success after winning a Grammy. Like it makes me feel like, oh, that song's for me. I don't know. Anyway, so you are listening to Grief Support Group, and we are on the segment now where I'm going to give an update on my thesis and talk about my research in grief and media, and also talk about Desperate Housewives, because as mentioned, I don't know why no one ever told me how great this show is. So let's get into it. First of all, for those who don't know, I'm a grad student here at San Francisco State, and my research focuses on grief and pop culture. So I am in my second year, and I am halfway done with the fall semester of my second year. And yeah, I'm stressed. So I was supposed to go to LA over the weekend, and I didn't because I'm like, okay, I only have so many weekends left of this semester, and I have to do my thesis, and I have to blah, 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 all these things. So here I am, stressed, and I didn't get everything done I wanted to this weekend, but I organized things. Did I get things done? No, I don't know, a little, not as much as I hoped, but that's fine. So basically, for those who don't know, my thesis is going to be looking at audience interpretation, which is new for me because usually I look at the media itself, right? So I'm interested in teen television, coming of age shows. Think Summer I Turned Pretty, think Never Have I Ever. And I'm really interested. Think My Life with the Walter Boys, which I don't know if I'll be including that in this. We shall see. But basically, I'm really interested in the fandoms of these shows. And these are teen television shows that portray and discuss grief and the nuances of grief and have a very, I think the interesting thing about teen television is that it's like not afraid to go there when it comes to grief. Like if you think of The Summer I Turned Pretty, for example, and I keep using that as an example because millions and millions of people were tuned in and watching it. As mentioned, 25 million people watched the finale, which was about a month ago, within the first 24 hours that it came out. So there's huge fandoms around these shows, right? And these shows, because they're portraying someone's coming of age, like if someone experiences grief in this moment of their lives, I mean, any moment of their lives, right? But particularly in their coming of age, it is going to be a huge part of their identity formation in this time. And so I'm interested in how fandoms of these shows interpret and understand grief when it's portrayed in these shows. So I'm at the stage of my thesis right now where I'm working on my literature review. And for those who aren't familiar, your literature review is essentially like when you are looking at all the research that has come out so far regarding your topic. So for me, what this means is I'm looking at a few different sections. So I'm looking at I have this big document right now that has multiple document tabs. I'm not someone who's organized in this way. I don't use document tabs normally, but I have these all laid out because it's a must. I'm all over the place. Basically, I'm looking at research regarding grief in media. Then I'm looking at research regarding the teen television genre. Then I'm looking at research regarding like the teen television fandom and fandom theory. So it's been really interesting and fun. And I think it's funny because I had just done a research paper over the summer with my mentor, shout out Dr. Nate, and we had looked at how grief is portrayed in streaming rom-coms. So we had looked at To All the Boys I Loved Before, Always Be My Maybe, and Love Hard. And we saw what themes came up in their portrayals of grief. So I have this view of how much research, I have this knowledge of how much research is out there when it comes to grief in media. And it's not very much. There's actually new articles that have come out recently, but it's not very expansive. And so I wasn't sure how it was going to be with teen television and with like the fandom of teen television, because I think in academia and in life in general, like it's kind of looked down upon teen television, even though nowadays, and always, right? Always, I'm not trying to discount like any of the shows that came before the current ones, because like you think about Glee, which was like 10 years ago, you think about Dawson Creek, which was, I don't know how long ago, I never watched that one, but like Gilmore Girls, like all these shows have always had this appeal to both young and slightly more mature audiences. Like if you think someone my age, because I'm 29, I'm in my 20s. So you think about that. But now like shows like The Summer I Turned Pretty or Never Have I Ever aren't just trying to talk to young audiences. They're also trying to talk to adults and appeal to adults' nostalgia. And this is powerful because adults, like, I think it's powerful for young people to have grief representation, but it's obviously also powerful for adults to have it because adults are also going through grief, maybe for the first time, or maybe they did when they were younger and they never had grief representation, and now they do. And now they can kind of understand it and have imagery that describes like all the things that they went through and maybe never processed, or maybe they did process and they're able to do it in a new light, or just again, have imagery and have words to it. So it's really interesting. So my thesis update is, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. No, I'm just kidding. I know what I'm doing, but it definitely feels overwhelming. So after this show, I have about a 5-hour break before class, and I am hopefully going to get more done. And hopefully I will have more of an update for you next week. I feel like this is keeping me accountable in some way. So now I want to talk about Desperate Housewives, because once again, I am watching it for the first time, and this show is wild. So there's the thing I love about old television, and I say old, obviously it's not that old. So it was on from 2004 to I think around 2012. And it's just, what I love is, obviously I love my shows like The Summer I Turned Pretty and Never Have I Ever, as just mentioned, but they only have, 8, 10, 11 episodes per season. Now, Desperate Housewives, I think I have quite a few seasons ahead of me. I don't know if it's 6 or 8, but each season has 20 plus episodes. And the crazy thing is, the show moved so quickly. It's not even meant to be binge watch at all, because people were getting this once a week, and that was their fix of Desperate Housewives. So I'm currently on season 1, episode 12, I believe, and so much is happening that I'm like, wait, this is a show that's like meant to be savored. So I'm not trying to like zoom through it in any way. I'm just trying to savor it and take my time with it, because I'm obsessed with it. And one thing in particular that I love is, well, first of all, I was like looking up like how it was received when it first came out. So this is from Reddit. This isn't like a good maybe source to be quoting on this show, because I do try to be factual, but per people on Reddit, hey, sometimes you can trust it. Sometimes everyone has to go blah, 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 Reddit. Like do a Google search and write whatever they're searching and write Reddit at the end. We all do it, right? It's how you crowdsource. Anyway, I saw that people were talking about, because I was like, how was it received in 2004? And people were talking about how it was one of the first like prime time all woman casts. And it came out like around the same time that Lost came out. So it's these two shows. And like in Desperate Housewives, it's such a satire on like the heteronormative expectations of relationships. And I just love it so much. They're so crazy, like they're so wild, and I love it. And something I find particularly interested in, because obviously I'm interested in death and grief in media, is the show opens. So if you're not familiar, it's about housewives who all live on Wisteria Lane, and they just crazy stuff happens. But the show opens with a nosy neighbor going to return a blender that she borrowed from this neighbor named Mary Alice. And she goes to return it, and she looks in the window and she sees Mary Alice has died by suicide. And so it's so funny. So that's not funny, but like the way they do it is funny, because then the nosy neighbor, takes the label that says on the blender that says like property of Mary Alice. She takes it off and she keeps the blender before even thinking to call for help, which I love. It just sets the tone for the show so perfectly. But it's so good. No, I'm literally so obsessed. So this woman, Mary Alice, has died in the very beginning of the show, and she's the narrator of the show throughout, at least for, I'm assuming the whole show, but certainly the first season. And what I love about that is someone who has died still has this voice and still is like such a huge part of the story. So I really love that. I don't know how many other shows have done that before. I think, you know what I'm thinking? I feel like a show like 13 Reasons Why probably like did what they did with Hannah Baker being the narrator, because of a show like Desperate Housewives. But the other, so on the flip, one, I think that's great. On the flip side, something that's interesting is, so there is this research from, let's see, it's from 2000 2024. I don't know why I said it like that. 2024, and it's by Zhang and Olsen, and it's called How Normative Deaths Celebrated, Reinforced, or Disrupted in Children's Media, a Critical Discourse Analysis of Coco and Soul. And it talks about how like the dead are kind of portrayed as like otherworldly in those particular movies. So then you're kind of like dehumanizing the dead, or like making them seem like, it almost like for children, because those movies in particular are for children audiences, like it makes it seem like it's harder to process the death for the children, because they're seeing this like the person who has died as like otherworldly and still living and like still going on. So it's like, how can you process death if like they're being like portrayed in that way? And so I think that's particular. I mean, in a sense, this could be applied to Desperate Housewives, because it's like, okay, so like Mary Alice can't say all these things and have her thoughts and have her analysis of what's going on in the present, because she's literally dead. So it kind of like, I don't know, like makes her live on in a way that's unrealistic. So it's interesting. And you see so many different characters, like they talk about her. They all, the four main characters and Mary Alice were like the ones who hung out every week. And so you see them four still hang out without her. And like, sometimes they talk about her, sometimes they don't. Like there's more murder that happens in the show, and there's just a lot that happens. But like, you see her son want to talk about her more, but the dad doesn't want to talk about Mary Alice. So there's so many different, portrayals of grief, even though it's more subtle. I think it's really interesting. But then another thing too, another downside is that, as I mentioned, there's so much murder that happens in the shows. So much death is happening. So and because, as I mentioned, the show moves on so quickly, so you kind of don't sit with the death and the grief as one would normally in real life. And that was my other problem with 13 Reasons Why, because so much happens that like, are you really like examining and portraying the grief experience if so much is happening and it's used for like a dramatic plot point rather than for an exploration? Again, not every show has to do everything. I'm still obsessed with it. I can't wait to see what happens. Yeah. Well, I don't want to give a spoiler, but episode 12 spoiler, the woman who stole the blender in the beginning, she is killed. So we'll see what happens next. Okay, well, when I'm not working on my thesis, I am thinking about Desperate Housewives. That's about the point where we're at. So I wanted to give that little segment. But I'm going to give another music break, and then we're going to get into our advice questions. So I have two that we're going to discuss today. We're going to discuss how to get your partner to communicate with you better, and then how you can support someone who's grieving a little extra during the holiday season. But first, we are going to get into a song once again that I have been listening to nonstop, and then I'll see you back there. Oh, also, if you want to ask any advice questions, you can do so. I will answer them in a future episode. You can do so at bit.ly/KSFS. And that is, bit.ly. I was like getting into the song and there's more to say. bit.ly/KSFS advice. Perfect. I will see you soon. Welcome back to Grief Support Group. I am your host, Alex Piscatelli. You just heard I Want to Be Your Man, which, love that song. I guess every analysis I say after every song is, I love that song, but I really do feel like I perfectly curate the exact songs I'm listening to in the week. They might not always blend together, but I think they do. I think those two work together. It was very yearning heavy, I think, the last segment. But it is that time that we get into our advice questions, and I'm so excited because I think there's two really great questions that I am going to be talking about today. So let's get into it. So advice question number 1. This person asked, how do I get my partner to communicate with me better? He lied to me about moving out and told me 3 days after because he thought I would be mad. I'm unsure why he'd think that, as I told him I would have celebrated this moment, which we did after the fact, but I'm still sad he didn't feel like he could open up to me. Thank you so much for sharing this. So you asked, how do I get my partner to communicate with me better? I think that's a great question, and I think it's great that you phrased it in that way, because I think the thing that we often are seeking in like our romantic relationships. I mean, any relationship, right? But I think the thing that is often named as most important and that a lot boils down to and that we should be hoping for is good communication. And so here you're saying that you want your partner to communicate with me better. And I think that totally makes sense. I think now it sounds like y'all are good because you ended up celebrating after the fact, but you still hold a little bit of sadness that he didn't initially communicate it, which totally makes sense. I think the biggest thing to remember, and this is my opinion, maybe others feel differently. I'm someone who feels a lot of emotions, like all of the emotions. I would say I'm an emotional person. Like, I think when I'm really happy, I'm really happy. When I'm sad, I'm sad. And I like to engage in those emotions. I don't like to bottle it up. I will never be someone who bottles it up. And I think if you are still sad about something, that, especially if it pertains to your partnership, I think you should bring it up and you should feel comfortable bringing it up, because that is communication. Like, if it's something that bothers you and you and your partner are in this partnership together, like, I think you should feel comfortable and like validated to bring it up to your partner. So I think have that conversation. And I think the biggest thing in these conversations is don't like come at them in like an accusatory way. Not saying you would, but like be like, hey, this made me feel I didn't like when you, or like, I didn't feel comfortable with you lying. It made me feel upset. Like, use very me statements. Don't be like, you lied, you made me upset, you this, you that. It should be all be, this is how I feel. This is my opinion. This is how when I'm thinking about it. I think that's a huge thing. It sucks that he didn't communicate that with you, and I'm sorry that happened. I think have a conversation with him. Maybe he was just stressed about it. Maybe he had a lot to do about it. Ideally, he would have shared that stress with you, but maybe he didn't want to like burden you or stress you out more. I don't know. I'm not trying to defend him, but I'm just trying to say that perhaps it wasn't something that was like sinister in any way. But more like his own stress that he was just not trying to add to yours. But it makes sense why you're sad about it. So I would have that conversation with him. And I think in general, communicating better, something that I don't always do with my husband, but like we try to do when we can, especially I'm like, let's do it whenever I feel like stressed out about school or whatever, is I try to have a check-in with my husband. I think check-ins are really important with your partner. And what we do when we do check-ins are we'll be like, okay, let's check in. And like, it makes me feel more connected to him because we'll be like, okay, how are you doing this week? How are you doing this week? And then we'll ask like what was the best part of your like last week? What was the worst part? Like, what are you looking forward to in the next week? What are you stressed about in the next week? How can I help you over the next week type thing? And I think that's a huge like way to make you feel more comfortable like bringing up anything that maybe like in the moment stresses you out. So like in that moment it's a perfect opportunity because you're having this like open and honest conversation to bring up anything that's stressing you out, and then you can connect in that way. And then I don't know, I just think it's like such a good way to get in the routine of communicating. And so then if something comes up throughout the week and you're not doing, like it's not during a weekly check-in time, you're already in the practice of communicating in that way and talking about like your feelings, that I think it makes it so much easier to bring things up throughout the week. How does that resonate? I know it sounds very corporate because when I was working 9 to 5, I had weekly check-ins with my manager. So you don't have to call it a weekly check-in. I kind of love being like, okay, let's have our weekly check-in, but we don't have it on the schedule or anything like that. We'll just do it at random. I don't even think we always do it weekly. But I think it's a really great strategy. I think it's helpful and you'll end up, as a result, in my opinion, communicating with your partner better. Okay. I hope that answered your question. Again, I'm sorry that happened, but it sounds like y'all are in a better place after that occurred. So I'm really glad for that. And I hope you feel comfortable expressing how you felt in the moment to him. And good luck moving forward. I think a check-in will be good for y'all. Okay, so that was our first advice question. We're going to get in a music break and then answer our second one about supporting a partner or family member who's struggling with extra grief during the holiday season. But if you want to ask an advice question and I can answer it on a future show, you can do so at bit.ly/KSFS advice. That's bit.ly/KSFS advice. Okay, we're going to get into a song and then I'll see you after this. Welcome back. You just heard Don't Remind Me by Amber Mark featuring Anderson .Paak. That is my favorite new release of the week. It just came out, her new album just came out last Friday. I haven't listened to the whole thing, but that particular song, so up my alley. As a reminder, you are listening to Grief Support Group, and we only have about 10 more minutes. I'm your host, Alex Piscatelli. I am going to get into our final advice question of the day. So, as mentioned, this show, we answer advice questions. So if you have any future questions, you can do so at bit.ly/KSFS advice. Let's get into the final advice question. This person asked, do you have any advice on how you can support a partner or family member who is struggling with what feels like extra grief during the holiday season? Thank you so much for asking that. I love having like a dating relationship type question and then a grief question, because I think those two things are so up my alley, just in my podcasting experience, but also my personal experience, but also my research. So thank you so much for asking this. The holiday season is coming up. I mean, we are halfway through with October. It's going to be Thanksgiving and Christmas time, and every other holiday is coming up. And I think that a major thing here is, I'm really glad you're asking this question, because it means you're thinking in a way that is going to like give space for this person to feel their grief. I think the worst thing you can do for a loved one who is grieving is not allow them the space to be able to feel comfortable and sit with their grief. I think I think it's great you're thinking in this way. So I just want to say that to start. I think the needs of a person who is grieving, especially during this time, are going to be different for every person, right? Some people are going to want to talk about the person that they lost more. Some aren't going to want to talk about it at all, but maybe do some traditions that they always did with this person. Some maybe want to make new traditions. And I think being open and accommodating to whatever your loved one wants to do is such a huge important thing. So first of all, I guess I would try to gauge what they want. Ask them how they are feeling about this time. Ask them what they want to do, how they want to celebrate with you. I think that's huge. Secondly, I think ask them questions about their loved one, and ask them questions about what they did with their loved one during this holiday season. I think it's so important to, if they want to make space to do these traditions, to make space for it and keep up the traditions that they wanted to do with their loved one. I discussed last week like the theoretical framework of continuing bonds. And it's this idea that when the person dies, like the relationship with the person doesn't die, you can continue those bonds in new ways. And whether that's upkeeping with holiday traditions or not, I think that's important to consider. So I wanted to share a little anecdote. I think holidays are hard, right? And for me personally, like my dad died December 17th and my mom died January 31st. Like this time is hard, and it's hard for anyone, no matter what year or what time of year someone died. Like holidays are usually a time where you spend it with family. And if someone lost a family member, like that's hard. It's going to change what holidays look like moving forward. And so I think a huge thing for me is, so obviously my last name Piscatelli, like I am Italian. My grandparents came from Italy. My dad's fully Italian. And my grandma has all these like recipes. She always cooked. And my dad wrote a cookbook called Pasta Fazool for the Soul. And so in this cookbook, he has like all the family recipes and family stories. And I'm so grateful for it because I'm able to read that like I just read it the other day because I just had friends over and I made them dinner. I'm not a cook, by the way. By the way, I don't cook. But I was like, let me make 2 full batches, like 10 servings of pasta fazool for my friends as I'm stressing about the thesis. And so I had friends over and I made them pasta fazool and they loved it. And I didn't tell them, like I didn't fully like, because these are new friends that I've made here in the Bay Area. Like I didn't fully tell them like about the cookbook or all these things, but I was like, yeah, it's my family recipe. And it's pasta fazool. Like obviously, like if you're Italian, you probably have had that all the time. And so Italian American, I guess I should clarify, but it's nice to have space for that with my friends in that way, where I'm making like my grandma's recipe that my dad like memorialized and wrote, and I'm sharing that with friends and they're eating the food and they're getting seconds of my food. And it's so nice because it's I'm not like fully outwardly talking about like my parents or my family or my traditions in any way, but like I'm still doing it and engaging with it. And so I think that's just a little example of like the ways that you can engage with. It doesn't have to be like this full like emotional like thing, but I think finding little ways to, or big ways, but ways that you can honor this person's loved one and hold space for it and bring them into the holiday season with you. I think that's such an important thing to do. And again, I think it's so beautiful that you asked this question. I think you're thinking about it in the perfect way. And I think whatever you do with your partner or family member who's struggling, I think they're going to deeply appreciate it. Okay, well, this has been another grief support group. You can listen to me every Tuesday. I'm here 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. Is anyone listening not in the Pacific time? Well, I'll leave you with one final song, but again, grief support group. I am your host, Alex Piscatelli. I'm so happy to have you all here, and I'm so excited to see you all next time. I'll leave you with one final song, but have a beautiful day.